Now, first and foremost, you know what free will is? Free will is the ability in us to do what we want when we want, to a certain degree. For example, everybody that's sitting here today, you came here by your own will. You weren't literally dragged into here while you're protesting, unless your friends did drag you in here, or unless your father did drag you in here, right? But still, you had the ability to resist. You came in here with a will. There may have been encouragement, but you came here with your free will. Now, we understand free will. Free will is established through two different ways. Number one, it's established by our experience. We feel free will. None of us feels forced. Food is sitting there. We don't feel forced to eat it. We can't help our hands getting down there and, taking the food in. We make that choice to do it. Right. So we feel that, we experience it. When you shake your hands voluntarily, a normal person gets his hand and shakes it voluntarily. That is free will. You also have people in this world who have Parkinson's disease, for example. They can't help shaking their hands. Even if they want to stop, they can't. Their hand shakes involuntarily. So there's a clear difference between an involuntary shaking of the hand and a voluntary shaking of the hand. Another thing is that when you're walking on level ground, you are just walking. You can, to a certain degree, control your pace. Try walking down an incline or a hill, and suddenly you have less control over your pace. Yes, you can stop, but if you're walking, you are still being helped because of gravity, as we call it. So clearly we understand that that is where you have free will, but you see that there's some other influence there as well, right? However, free will is established, and it's only because the human has free will that there is Jannat and Jahannam. If there was no free will, there'd be no point of Jannat and Jahannam. The grand scheme of things, the way they are, and part of that is that Allah gave us free will to make our decision, because Allah says, وَمَا أَنَا بِظَلَّامٍ لِلْعَبِيدِ. I am not one to oppress even in the least my servants. I will not oppress at all. لَا يَظْلِمْ شَيْئًا. Allah does not oppress even the slightest. Allah will only punish us for wrongs that we have committed. Nobody will go into hellfire thinking that they have been oppressed or wronged or put in without justice. They will realize the wrongs that they have done, because Allah only is just and nothing else. Allah is just. There's no unfair doesn't apply to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So because of the fact that we have free will, there is paradise and there's hell, or there's hell and paradise, and because of that we have free will. You can see it either way. It's the grand scheme of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now once we've established free will, then how is it possible that we exercise our free will, our volition, our choice, right? We're independent and autonomous in doing so, but then it's all written. It's already written. So how have we got free will when it's already written? Whatever we're doing is in accordance to what's written, and what's written is in accordance to what we're doing. So how do you understand that then? If you've got your free will and you experience free will, does anybody deny free will here? Right? I don't think there's anybody. I mean, there were groups who denied it theoretically. Practically you can't, because you feel free will. Then how is it possible that you're going according to what's written in the divine tablet in Al-Lawh al-Mahfuz? Once I would say in a half guilty sense, I was racing down the highway in California, the freeway, 101 on the coast, and I was stopped by, I was only going about 80 miles an hour, by the way, right? Which in England is nothing. Generally 80 is kind of like tolerable. People go 90 and 100. But in America that was a big deal, because 65 is the limit in California in most places. So 80 was a bit. Now for some reason I was coming back and this police stopped me. And I said a few things to him. I said, please this, that, and the other. He says, it's your destiny. So I said, oh, okay, what's destiny? So we had a little chat, and I explained this understanding that I'm about to give you about destiny, as to how it goes in accordance with what's written, how it is destiny. He still gave me a ticket. He appreciated what I mentioned, but he still ended up giving me a ticket, because that was the destiny, right? That was my destiny on the day. Now what happens is, Going back to that question, how do we reconcile the fact that everything has been written, but we still have free will and we don't feel forced? The reason is simple. Whatever Allah had written in that divine tablet, if you understand this, it will make a lot of things simple for you. Then inshallah you will not feel doomed. You will not feel depressed. You will not feel as if you know your future, because nobody does. Nobody does. Whatever's written in there is written based on the knowledge of what Allah knew, right? The knowledge of Allah, of what we were going to do with our free will. So for example, what's your name, brother? Allah knew that brother Uthman, when he comes into the, I'm going to call you Uthman, okay, if you don't mind. Yeah. When he comes into this world, he's going to be doing this with his free will. He's going to come to Masjid Abu Bakr on this New Year's Eve with his free will. And that's what Allah wrote. He will do this with his free will, he will do this. You know, it was a descriptive detail, not prescriptive. Not that Uthman has to do this, Yusuf has to do this, and Abdur-Rahman Bhai has to do this. He didn't write that. That's not what it was written. If it was written in that fashion, Zayd has, Imam Abu Hanifa clarifies this clearly. If it was written like that, then that means we would be compelled. We wouldn't have any free will. But we experience the free will, and that's what's written there. Only because Allah knew what we were going to do. I'll give you another example. If you're a teacher, you've taught somebody for a year or two, you kind of understood their capability. Come time for exam, what you did was, before the exams, you wrote down what you predicted. You predicted some grades of theirs. Then after that, they go take their exams, their tests. After the test, you get the results. And you compare your results, you compare the actual results with your predictions, you'll see that most of it is very similar. You can still make mistakes because we're human beings, we don't really know the future. We think, we can speculate about our future. So they will be very similar. We may have missed out in something, right? This guy was a straight A student, but for some reason on that day, he messed up. But most of the others were the same, right? With Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's never a mess up. It's absolute knowledge, 100%. There's never a mistake or an error at all. So whenever he knows, it's because for him, time doesn't apply to him. It's like the whole universe is less than, you know, imagine you have one of those medical capsules, medicine. Imagine an entire universe taking place in there of bacteria. You can get thousands of bacteria on a pinhead. So imagine that scope. Now, again, Allah is even beyond that, but just to understand, an entire universe is taking place in, what difference does it make? And that's not even a proper example. Allah is beyond that. But we must understand that what's written is not prescriptive, it's descriptive. Allah wrote what we were going to do with our free will because He knew what we were going to do with our free will. We end up doing exactly according to what's in the divine tablet because Allah knew what we were going to do with our free will. So now, do you feel more free now? Do you feel less compelled? Alhamdulillah.